should be coming up live in a minute. It's trying to connect. YouTube's connected. All right. Hello, everybody. Once again, thank you so much. All right. I'm getting it together. Listen here. Um, Once again, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to another episode here of Street Therapy KC with Chris. Man, Chris Jackson sitting here in the air chair. Yeah, we're going to continue the conversation we've had last week. We had a conversation with Dr. Hadnot. She talked about an event she got coming up here next month about the prophetic, about where we are as a nation, where we are as a society, um, and what's going on in the heavenlies. And what I mean by the heavenlies, the invisible, the realm that we don't see and that we often don't talk about enough. I think that there is definitely enough to be said about the spirit realm and figuring out how to take authority in that realm. God gave us authority in that realm, and obviously it's through Jesus Christ. But we need to understand a lot more about that, um, and also the different facets that come with that, as far as how not only to take authority in that realm, but what are some of the other dimensions in that realm? What are some of the other angles that we need to really look at when we're dealing with that, and what to address? Because you can't bind what you don't know what to bind. You can't loose what you don't know what to loose. You don't want, and what I mean by that is you don't want to just shoot in the dark. You want to be able to be concise, precise, and on target with what it is that you're aiming for. Someone to help me have this conversation today. In fact, I'm going to let her have the conversation today. I'll just be on here as a witness to the conversation, what she's got going on. Today, my guest is Dr. Trina Brown. Dr. Trina Brown is no stranger to that realm, to understanding the spirit realm, and to actually digging into what it is that we need to take authority in. But Dr. Trina comes from a different angle. I mean, same angle, but she kind of comes with her bullets are different. And what I mean by that is she has targeted information and targeted bullets. But without further ado, you don't want to hear me. I want y'all to hear her. So I'd like to introduce to some and present to others Dr. Trina Brown. Dr. Trina Brown, how are you?
I am doing wonderful, Chris. How are you today? Can you hear me okay? Sounds good,
Perfect,
okay?
perfect. Yep, we're good.
Great.
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you wonderful. I can hear you great. Um, Thank you
Wonderful.
for having me. Thank you for allowing me the time to come on and speak. And when Dr. Jackie said, "Well, can you do it?" I said, "Girl, of course, anything for you. Yeah, anything for Dr. Jackie."
Yeah,
But I'm excited. I'm so excited for what's getting ready to happen in regards of the camp, the boot camp, and it's called the Art of Spiritual Warfare.
yes.
And it's so interesting because, like you just said, it's what we're dealing with right now. Some things that we don't know how to recognize it or what to call it, but it's a warfare. You might not look at it as a warfare, but going through some things, some challenges with your children, going through some challenges on the job, going through some challenges, it's a warfare, and that means that there's a fight that must be had. And so, since we know there's a fight, then we have to understand what's the difference between the natural and the spiritual. And so, if we look at it on the spiritual level, there are some things that we have to understand and say, how do we get to this place of understanding where we at? And so there's a few things that I work on. My part of my assignment through this boot camp is to talk to people about resolving and getting to the understanding of diminishing the poverty spirit or the poverty mindset. How do I get to a place where I get rid of this spiritual warfare or this warfare that we deal with, but it's dealing with the poverty mindset?
Mm,
How do we diminish that? How do we get rid of that? And then the other part of it is also understanding how the kingdom assignment works in regards of kingdom marketplace. Because some people have the ability to do things, but they have the fear factor that they can't do it or won't do it because there's a warfare. There's some things that's going to have to happen. And so understanding the kingdom marketplace and being able to understand the spiritual warfare that happens when we deal with the kingdom marketplace.
yeah, listen, that's awesome. You talked about the poverty, I guess the poverty demon, but the poverty, the lack mindset. Uh, is that easily broken? Secondly, but first, is that something that's is it almost hereditary? Is that something that's passed down, or is that a learned behavior, like something that was taught?
Well, it's part two. It's two things. Let me say this: it can be either or, and sometimes it's both.
Mm,
And that's because that's the lack of training or understanding where they are. I am, and I'll tell you a little bit about me. I am a coal miner's granddaughter. My grandfather was a coal miner.
mm,
And so having that mindset as coming from the baby of the youngest of 10, and understanding that it can be a set mindset that you stay in a place because you don't have the ability to move forward. And that could be a place where your mind is stuck, even though you know that there's something better out there. And so there is things that the enemy will keep you from doing the things of God, because he will keep you in that place of saying, oh, you can't do it because your grandfather only have an eighth grade education. This is some people's story. Are you a single mom, and you're this and you're that? And so he will keep you in that bondage by keeping your mind in a place where you can't grow, because he'll make you stay in a poverty mentality instead of saying, this is spiritual. I can do this because I'm more than a conqueror. I can
mm,
go to my next level because I understand that those things that's in me are not of what God has called me to be. And so I have to release some things. What is it? What do I have to be free from to move into my next?
mm. Yeah, that's heavy. And when we look at, yeah, it is. But when we look at even the title of the event that's coming, the art of
Yeah.
spiritual warfare. So the art would imply that there's some type of a art form behind this.
Right.
You gotta be kind of, I don't want to say crafty, but you gotta be kind of crafty with this. It has to be kind of woven in such a way where it's an art form to this.
Right. And you know, I tell people when I do my counseling with some clients or whatever, it's just like a clear canvas. When we look at a painter, for example, a painter, they start off with a clear canvas. And so
Mhm.
that means there's nothing there. And so you're using your imagination to create the art. And so what God has done with us individually, He's created something in us to allow us to know that whatever it's in us is to allow us to go through the journey of life, and it's going to create a pattern or create the wave of letting us know that we have to get to from point A to point B, but
Yeah.
through that pathway there is a form of art. And so
Mhm.
that could be some arts that's going to go. It's just like the man with the many talents. There's going to be some art things that's going to happen. And so when we look at the word art, that means we're going to look at how things was created, but
Mhm.
also how things can be utilized through the creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so based off of that, then what was the art? What did we create? And how do I utilize what I've created? This is the key. You create something, then you utilize what you
Mhm.
create to allow you to get to your next. Because
Yeah.
when I create something, I'm starting it from scratch. But
Yeah.
once I got the rhythm of how it's done, then it's a pattern that allows me to keep momentum and keep going to the next level. And so now it becomes a art of.
Mhm.
You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because now
Absolutely.
I just started one piece. Now it becomes an art up, and then it becomes the formula that allows me to get to my next. Because once I change my way of thinking, so that but the Bible says, whatsoever a man thinks, so is he. So if now I change the art of
Mhm.
what I've seen,
Yeah.
because it was in my mind, now I created the formula to put onto paper, and now I start to move into that. So the art of the spiritual covering, spiritual warfare, is to allow you to know to tap into something that's already there because it's been created for you. And so now you move into the spiritual realm and understanding that these things must come out through spiritual warfare.
Yeah. Yeah, well, even art, art is it is creative, and not only that. Say you're dealing with uh, painting. You have a piece of art. You've got many different paintings that come, many different colors that come together to create one specific image.
Mm-hmm.
And so even with the art of spiritual warfare, there's got to be different types of colors, if you will, or different types of uh, pieces that come together to create this one function. What are some of the different uh, pieces that are coming together to create this event? As far as you're speaking on poverty. I'm sure there's other speakers that are speaking on mindset and different things like that. What are some of the different
And
things?
and that's the beauty of it. Dr. Jackie has created a platform where she's bringing speakers that have that niche that could give
Mhm.
you. It's just like when you at work and they say, "Well, we got a subject matter expert."
Right.
So that's what they say. Well, we have a subject matter, someone that has been working in this realm, know how to tap into this area, and so we call them SMEs when we're working in the corporate America or either in
Right.
the workplace. They
Right.
say, well, let the subject matter expert handle that. And so from the spiritual realm, we're going to say that Dr. Jackie has strategically placed everyone in their proper place to
Mhm.
handle the spiritual warfare based off of their subject matter. And so mine is based off of, I understand this piece because I know what the kingdom marketplace, working and not only in the church, but how to utilize the kingdom marketplace, utilizing the outside corporate America, but yet still be building the kingdom. And so
Yeah.
when we look at that, that's another target area of spiritual warfare. And so there's warfare within the family, spiritual
Mhm.
warfare that's within the family, spiritual warfare within the finances.
Mhm.
So how to deal with alcoholism, singleness. There's marriages that's going through warfare. So there's different targets that she has built up under that umbrella of spiritual warfare. And so the art of it And so she's creating a canvas or painting, as you would say, that's going to allow everyone to say, okay, once they walk away from it, they can really look back and say, you know what, I can see the pieces of the puzzle because now I have this, now I have that, and all of it has blended together to create something great and powerful because now we're walking in what we know how. And when we see something that's not of God and we see the warfare and say, okay, I know this is a spiritual attack. How do I handle it? And I look at the painting, I said, okay, this is coming from my family. This is coming from this area. And so now I understand the art of it because I've been able to examine it based off of the subject matter experts.
Absolutely. And I think that's the difficult part of it because, you know, oftentimes if we get hit with so many things at once, you don't know what to, you don't know where to attack it because there's so many different angles that's coming against you. It's like, say you have the generational a piece of it, but also you may have the relational piece, not being able to relate to people. So but then you don't really have the other piece, so you're trying to figure out if it's this piece or this piece or this piece. And I think that's also what Dr. Jackie's putting together and having the panel, because when you know where the attack is coming from, then you can specifically go in that area as opposed to running around trying to figure
Right,
you can
exactly.
specifically go to that specific area, deal with that specific thing, and get that thing figured out to move forward in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me is, like you said it so profoundly, in regards of understanding the attack and where it's coming from and
Yeah.
how to address it.
Yeah.
The key thing is when I understand that this is attack that's coming from certain areas, then I know what to do in regards to what the Bible say, but then also I know what to reference, what I need to do in regards of my relationship. So that's why the Bible says by these things that
Yeah.
comes out through fasting and praying. And so sometimes we might have to turn that plate over. Sometimes we might have to just say, oh, okay, I'm going on a 24-hour fast, or I'm going to go into the place where I'm just going to read my word and I'm going to pray about the situation. So we have to know the tools to use while we're working on the art form. Because let me tell you this is the good thing about this piece, is that when a real artist come to play, they know how to use the big brush. So when you're working with the canvas, first thing you do is you smooth your canvas, and what happens is you use the wide brush, okay?
Right.
And so once I get to the detail of the art, and say, for example, I'm going to pencil someone's eyes in, I'm going to get the very fine tool of a pencil lead of a brush that will allow me to get to the pen of it and get to the very fine part of that to create the canvas that I want. And so there's so many tools, as you were saying earlier, in regards of the art of the covenant, art of the spiritual warfare. But the thing about it is, when you're painting a canvas, you're using so many different brushes. And what we know that God did with us, he created us all uniquely different. So everyone has a specific need, but of knowing that there's a spiritual warfare, but what tools to use at that time.
Yeah. I think it's I believe that it's I believe she masterfully put this together. I don't know everybody that's on panel, but I think it's important to actually have all the pieces in sequence, and I'm sure she's got them in sequence the way that they go, because you don't want to have somebody out there and it's almost, you don't want to have people tripping over other people's feet and things like that. You want everything to it's almost like you have, you push something farther and then you go farther and farther and farther, and then you get there and you want to make sure that the momentum stays the way it is. And also, you talked about, some these things come by fasting and prayer and things like that. Is that where we are as a people right now, or as a society? We might have to forego some meals. We may have to get on our face and cry out to God, because there are some things that we may have to do ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I really believe this is my belief as well. And I know this is Dr. Jackie's belief because God gave her this. And she was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. And so God put the urgency into it. And when you got an urgency, it's like a 911, you got to get there. You got to help the people. And as you have noticed, and as within the pandemic, going through the pandemic, and some say we're out of it, but I believe on the spiritual side of it, we're still in the midst of a war. You know what I'm saying? And so I believe that we're dealing with more teenagers, our young people are dealing with some things that's going on. We have more teenagers that's dealing with suicidal. We got all these different things. And so how do we deal with that? By knowing that that is a spiritual attack against our children. And so we have to know that there is an attack going. And so it's just like when you go to war, you don't send soldiers that don't have the full armor on. You send someone that's fully prepared to go in and take back what back what the enemy stole. And so we
Strategy.
have to have those things in place in regards of our family, in regards of our health. What am I doing to allow myself, because I've been in a house for 3 years now, I need to get out and exercise. I need to change my eating habits because the enemy made me think that, oh, I'm going to die because I might have COVID, or I got to go through this, and so what do I do to live? And so that's a spiritual warfare. And so you have to look at all of those things. And as you stated, she has strategically, when I say she has laid before the Lord strategically to say this is what needs to happen, because it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's not something that need to happen.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
Because of what's what's to come. It's like if you don't know that something is getting ready to happen, you'll be sitting back and going life as usual. But
Yeah.
when you recognize that there's something that's getting ready, that's brewing up, it's just like a tsunami. I was talking to someone a couple of years ago when the tsunami hit over in South America and stuff. And we were talking about, okay, what happens with a tsunami? You don't really get to see it until it's full force. You hear the rumbling of it, you might know something, but until that water start pushing up against the trees, start gushing towards the houses, you don't see the power of the force of behind it until you get to that point of understanding that there is a tsunami. And so that's the destruction of what a warfare can happen if you're not in tune with it. And so now we have to understand from the spiritual side, this is the key. And this is what I want to say, is that on the spiritual side, there is much work to be done. That's why it's so much division amongst the churches, amongst the leaders, amongst because they're trying to figure out what I can do instead of saying, what can we do on the spiritual level to get us to a place of understanding what's getting ready to happen.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. When you know something is brewing, when you know the hurricane is coming, why not prepare before it gets to you? And that's where we are. Why not do the necessary adjustments right now to get in position for that. If I mean, let's see, squirrels do it when they know that winter's coming. Squirrels get all their nuts and things like that for winter. I mean, bears
Hibernation,
hibernate.
birds,
Bears
yeah,
hibernate
yeah.
during the winter. They have that understanding that I know this is coming up. I mean, listen, Christmas is December 25th, and we know that's every year. And folks get prepared. Some people say, "Well, I maxed out my credit card this year." Well, you knew it was coming this year or next year. You knew it
Right.
was coming. Why not have gotten prepared for that? Yeah. So I believe COVID was the natural symptoms that had come because of whatever reason. So COVID was a natural, but on the backside of that, we've gone through, the natural part of it, but then there's a spiritual realm that is the back end. They say oftentimes it's like when hurricanes or tornadoes come, then you get the full brunt of it, or even I'll use earthquakes. When the earthquake comes, it comes to shake everything up and unstable and tear everything
Hmm.
up. But even after the earthquake is gone, there are still tremors.
Right.
So you've gone through the heavy part about of it, but you still have to be careful, but because there's still some things that have left behind that you got to watch out for. Those little remnants, and I think that's why this is so important, because there may be some things that have shaken your foundation, but there's some little things that are left behind that you still need to tighten up on.
Right, exactly. And it's actually remind me when you said that, because the Bible talks about first natural then spiritual. So on the natural thing, there is something that's going to happen on the natural realm, but it actually to bring awareness to make sure that the spiritual happens as well. And so it's always a balance. You don't see one without the other. Majority of the time, a lot of people say, "Well, I'm spiritually this." No, you that, as the old folks would say, you can't be so spiritual that you're no earthly good. And so that I can't be always walking around in tongues and not have a revelation of understanding who God is on a natural level. And so I got to be the witness. How can I witness to people and let them see the God that I serve if I'm not living in the natural realm of understanding that? And so this is why it's important of the art of spiritual warfare, because it is truly an art. But you have to understand that once we get into this realm of knowing some things, because life brings us some curveballs, as everyone knows. I was talking to someone today, and they made a point that, through everything that I go through, the greater reward comes at the end of the thing. I have to go through. I might have to sacrifice some things. I have to encounter some things, and I have to go through some things to make some adjustments. But the reward is greater. And so as I go through the spiritual warfare in this boot camp, my understanding is to get a clarity of what's happening to me, so I can be able to build my family, so I can encourage my community, that I can make a difference in my nation or my country. And so the thing about it is, when we tap into those things, then we're making not only ourselves better, but those that surround us better. And that's the piece that I really want to lay hold on, based off of the spiritual warfare. Because once the people that come to this encounter, the boot camp, they will see not only have I made a difference, I've got myself set free. I've worked on me. Now I can work on understanding how to operate with my children, how to understand how to operate with my spouse, how to understand how to operate and be a good co-worker, but most of all, how to understand my community and the surroundings that I'm in. And now I know how to pray things into place.
Well said. Yeah, when you talked about the praying and having to speak to the situation and things like that, it's we I heard someone say this today. POW, is normally prisoner of war, but they also said POW, power of words.
Mm-hmm.
Words can loose and words can bind, and oftentimes is uh, we have a we have a propensity to speak certain words over our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna be this. I can't do this. I'm a loser. I'm weak. Life has always gone bad for me. I can't stand it. You know, and when we speak those things over and over and over again, it builds an
It
image. It
manifests,
it,
it comes forth.
it actually builds a whole nother character,
Right, exactly.
and
It's
then
going to come forth.
we end up walking in that character, and then we end up becoming that person. And we spoke that off of our life, and we spoke that over our life so much to the point where now we have become a whole nother person that God didn't intend for us
Mm-hmm.
to be.
Exactly.
But we're
And
walking
that's the
in
part.
that thing.
Right. And that's the other piece of it, because the words become life. It create life. And so I can either create death or create life. And so the more I speak negative, and I'm around people that's speaking negative and talking down to me, and now I took on that person. I've actually took on that coat that I carry the weight of someone else and not realize that I'm carrying it because I don't have the energy anymore. I'm not doing the things that I used to do because I don't feel I'm worthy of it, because I'm divorced and got 3 kids now, and he left me for this other woman, or either she left me because she wanted to be another man. All those things compound on top of that can create a person to create something that they was never meant to be. And so that becomes a spiritual warfare, because now I'm in that realm that I wasn't never created for, because I never was created to have those mindset or even have those behaviors of thought. Because like you said earlier, is it someone training you, or is it something that you inherited, or is it something that's a generational thing? Sometimes it's based off of how someone was raised. So you have people say, well, it's a generational curse. Well, what led to that generational curse? Because it just didn't happen. So that means that someone spoke over their life, and said, you're going to be just like your grandmother, them. You're going to have babies just like your mama before she's 15. She had 3 kids. And, so now it became words that took power. And now all of a sudden it grew legs, and now it's you.
When you said coat, it's like a coat that we put on, and as soon as you said the word coat, I instantly thought heavy.
Weight.
It's it's it's
It's
it's a
weight.
it's a weight that you've put on yourself. Because listen, nobody in many cases, nobody told. And I had a conversation with my nephew some time ago, and he listens to a lot of different, rap music and stuff like that, and a lot of it's some pretty rough stuff. And I've seen his life begin to change, and he was like, I'm a thug. I said, who told you that? Who told you was a thug and you was a gangster and all that stuff? He said, man, that's just what it is. I said, Grandma didn't tell us that. I know your mama didn't tell you that. Who told you that? Somebody had to tell you that. Now you walking around in this thing that you definitely are not. But who told you that? And then so we started looking. Yeah, I said, because I said, see what happened? He said, well, I said, everything that you rapped and that you've spoke over and over and over again, you're starting to become what you spoke over yourself.
Right, exactly. And just imagine now that you open up this piece here. Now just think about our generation of the children that's in their teenage up to their early 20s, 30s, mid 30s, whatever. Uh, uh, and they have went through those spans of someone speaking over their lives, saying certain things to them, and they don't know how to unwiggle or unwind or release that, because they don't know that that has been spoken over them, because it's been a generational curse that's constantly been carrying on, and they don't know that all of a sudden, like you said, who told you that?
Yeah.
And now the music, like you said, the music and the things that they listen to have caused them to say, oh, I'm walking around tough, da 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 da, because now they're watching TV that got certain things on it, and it's like you have to look at what is out there that's causing people to take on something that is not of them. And that's why the people say, well, by association. Who have I been associating myself with? And that could be through my music, that could be through what I'm watching on TV, that could be through conversation, and so
My
more
company.
that, right, the
The
company that you
company you
keep,
keep. Yes.
exactly. And so that brings on that part of understanding that some people can't go with you where you're going, and some people you have to let go of and understand that this is not where I'm at. I tell people all the time, if you look at where some people are at now, and they haven't made any changes from 10, 20 years ago, and they still in the same pattern, there's something wrong in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to find out that part.
Yeah. And I believe, like I was talking to my wife the other day, and people are seasonal. And what I
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean by that is they can only carry you or go with you for so far. That's like, you're a single guy. You got all your buddies and stuff like that. You guys go and hang out. You guys do your thing and everything, and you're staying out late. You're doing the party and things like that. But when you get married, you can't do a lot of that stuff. You can't go out and hang out with your buddies all the time. You can't go and do all these things. So, and if you don't have the friends that don't fully understand where your transition is, they'll think that it's still okay for you to do the single thing, but it's not. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong in that aspect. It just simply means that that season of your life is over. Now,
Right,
if you
exactly.
try to take that season and mesh or merge it into this season, then now what you're starting to do is you're going to mess up your future season because you're trying
Because you're
to
still
drag your
connected. Right,
past season
right. You're bringing
onto
the
that,
past into
and
your
and
future.
it don't work like that.
It don't work.
No,
It doesn't.
no.
And that's a good synopsis of some people want to ling on or clink on to or attach to themselves to my man. That's my homeboy. That's he been with me from seventh grade, and we
Day
ride or
one.
die. They use the term we ride or die, and so and not knowing that that's not the pattern or the a way, and so you can hold on to someone that can be
Mhm.
actually deterring you from getting to your future based off of staying connected to your past. And so just because he was my homeboy in seventh grade up until we're 29, and now I ain't letting him go, and so it's that place that some people need to say, you know what, man, I'm not the same man that I was 30 years ago. I'm not the same person that I was. I can't, some people are only there, like you said, it's for a season. And
Yeah.
so we have to understand when people's timing is up,
Yes.
when and let that go, because
Yeah.
that's the thing about the beauty of art and the spiritual warfare is that there you have to understand that there are some things it takes for an actual good painting to set and sit for a while. The timing is that that artwork have to sit for at least 3 weeks for it to
Mhm.
dry up
Mhm.
completely, and
Mhm.
the seal of it gets to a place. And so I can do all kinds of
Mhm.
things and create all kinds of image, but it just ain't gonna be perfect, because
Yeah.
if I touch it too soon, I can smear it. If I get too close to it, I can the oil from the artwork can
Yeah.
cause it to leak, or to dribble or to run from it. And so it's not allowing it to sit and marinate into the pattern that it needs to be. So I can't bring Johnny, because Johnny was my homeboy back in the eighth grade, and me and Johnny got in trouble all the time, and I got in
Mhm.
trouble in school with Johnny. And so Johnny can't go with me to being a man, because Johnny gonna make me feel like we still kids, and because
Yes.
Johnny ain't never grown up. And so I can't put on that man mentality as the king, because I'm still having childish behavior.
Yes. Yeah, when that art has not fully dried or matured or come into fruition, if you touch that or if you bother that, you could mess up what you spent all
Right.
week or all day. You could destroy what you've taken your time
And have to
to
start
come,
all
and you
over.
can just smear it out and destroy that. That is, man, that is, yeah.
Yeah. And that you said something key. It destroys. And what does the enemy come and do? Kill,
Mhm.
steal, and destroy. And so he can destroy the art of what God created. So see, the thing about it, when you look at the word art, it comes from a
Mhm.
creativity. And so what did God do? He created us
That's right.
to be
That's
in his
right.
image.
Yeah.
And so if he created us to be in his image, that means he created us by knowing that this is something that has to be marinated and finely tuned, because I put my seal on it, and my seal cannot be removed. But the thing about it is, because it's art and it's creative, then
Yeah.
that means the enemy will come and try to destroy it, because it's good. Because
Yeah.
God said, "What this is good."
Mm.
That's what He said in Genesis. This is good.
Mm.
Everything that He created was good.
Yeah. And man, listen, and the enemy knows what he was in heaven. the enemy knows what the canvas looks like in heaven.
Exactly.
He understands that that's obviously he understands how much God loves you, and he would do anything to keep you from that canvas to that extra piece to that final destination, and he would do whatever he could to keep you from that. And I believe that I believe that's why the art of spiritual warfare, this conference right now, is so key, because there are people that are searching for that other piece.
Right.
And I don't just mean the piece of the puzzle, but I mean the peace of mind. There
Right.
are people that are looking for that.
And they don't have it. And that's the thing about it is you have to look at where some people are mentally this, and
Hmm.
we are in a season, a time where people are dealing with more mental issues than you have ever heard of in our nation, in our timing. I mean, back even in the 70s when people were dealing with depression and all these things, and back in the early 50s, they were dealing with the depression, Great Depression, and all that. You have never heard of so many people taking antidepressants and dealing with the mental issues since the pandemic, because it's everybody is saying mentally, oh, I need a mental break. I
Yeah,
can't deal with it. And so
yeah,
now they're tapping into this is what's going on. But there's so many, not
yeah,
only adults, but teenagers, young people. I remember at 13 and 14 years old, I could never see myself telling my mom, "Oh, I'm depressed. I don't feel. I'm not feeling." I was outside running around, doing. We creating. We was creative. You don't
yeah,
see kids out being creative anymore. First thing they do is go in and get on the TV or the internet and the iPads and stuff. The creativity of life, which
yeah,
what he created us. Listen what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. Creativities.
yes,
We were
right,
creative,
yeah,
which allowed us to stimulate the brain to constantly be creative in
yeah,
doing something. And
mhm,
now there's no more creativities happening with our young people, because the first thing they do is they grab a phone. But next
mhm,
thing they do is they grab an iPad or they go play
mhm,
on a PlayStation. So the
yeah,
computer has become the creativity.
mhm,
So I don't do anything like that. So that's
yeah,
that's another part of this.
yeah. You said so many triggers. The the creator um made excuse me, the creator made his created to be the creative,
Right, exactly.
and oftentimes is, we've taken that to the point where when you have one of those disconnects, when you don't have the creator and the created having that conversation, then it's hard to be creative because you
Right.
don't have that flow. So and when that flow is disconnected, then you can tell there's a disconnect. So because it's not flowing like it is. So man, this is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and those three C's, those are
Yeah.
powerful. Them are some powerful three C's, because we have to
Indeed.
look at one, the creator,
Yep.
and the creative.
Yep.
And then he created us to do some things so we can be creative. And so
Absolutely.
and so and so the key thing is that when he created us, we
Mm,
became the creator.
yeah.
He created, and so now he said, I'm passing my baton,
Mm,
because greater works we're supposed to do than the Father. How
mm.
can we do greater work if we're never creative enough to be the creator that he created us to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That
and
part.
and so and that's why it's so many things and that's why it's important to understand this boot camp it's really crucial, because there's things that's going to start you to get back to that place of being creative, being because the creator has created you to be creative. And so now I'm starting to do, because the other thing that he said, whatsoever man like of he'll give to you freely. But he said
Yeah.
he created us to be able to draw onto things, and to be inventors, and to have all these great things. And that's the thing about it. There was somebody that created us to be able to get on a Zoom and do these things. And so what have we allowed God to use in us because we're creative to do, but what have we not done because we're still working in a fear from the warfare that we're dealing with and not being free in the spirit.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can go deep into this whole creative thing because when you look at the creative part of it, there's so much right now that
Mm-hmm.
is taken, or there's so many hits on our ability to create right now. When you look, when you talked about the computers, that at that gives you some level of creativity, but it doesn't give you the whole experience, like you said, going
Mm-mm.
outside and creating the different games out of thin air or whatever the case. But also, when you look at our lifestyles, as far as if it be health, but as far as it being, the movements that are really, to be honest with you, the movements that have been aimed at taking men away from being men
Being
and the
men.
creative and the creative, and that's another ability to create,
Right.
and that is another one of those seas that can take an attack and can throw everything off. And then once you throw this thing off, everything is unbalanced. I believe that's why the whole mental aspect is as heavy as it is because we are shooting in the dark. When
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a clear and concise target, or the target's there, but the target sometimes is there. But and really, to be honest with you, the target haven't even moved. The target haven't is just you just have all these different things in front of it to where you really can't see it.
Distractions,
And
the
once you
distractions and
100%.
things that is like when you go to, I don't know if you've ever been to a gun range or
Yep.
anything like that, and so they have things pop up, or either go
Hmm.
to do power or was it paintball range, and things are popping out from all different directions,
Yes.
and so that's the attack of the enemy. What
Yes.
he's going to do is pop out something here, so all of a sudden your car break down, and now your finances are gone crazy, and now the child got suspended from school, and now your job, your supervisor telling you got to work long hours, and you got to figure out how to do this, and now all of a sudden you got to come home and cook a meal, and prepare for your children. Then yet you got to, and I tell the women all the time, yet then this is me. I'm just going to be transparent with you, Chris.
Hmm.
Is that okay? So from a woman's perspective, and now I know from a man you're going to say certain things, but from a woman's perspective, I got this going on, and
Hmm.
then I have my husband, I got the children, I got to make sure the food is cooked, I got to make sure the
Yeah.
house is properly taken care of, all these things. And so this is where family have to learn how to have a balance. And the
Yeah.
enemy has come in and made a distraction because there's so much going on that is causing so much conflict. And so that's where the spiritual warfare, because that we're not blending and mashing together. And so with all these things going on, it caused so much chaos. And so now the enemy is sitting back and saying, I did you just like I did Job. This is a Job experience for some people,
Yes.
and so we have to realize and say, you know what? That's the spiritual warfare that we're dealing with. We have to understand what season we're in, and I commend Dr. Jackie for understanding that this is what needs to happen. A lot of
Yeah.
people, when you hear spiritual warfare, they like, oh, what's that all about? And because the first thing they're looking at is more of from a warfare of saying, okay, well, this is church related. No, if
Hmm.
you really look at it, it's
Hmm.
not really all church related, because let me say it like this, and I'm going to really hit home with it. It's not really all church related. It's the person that created us related, because we're looking at it in his image. And so when we look at it as from a spiritual say, we're looking from the spirit of God. Okay. We're not looking at it as what church is saying. We're looking at it as an art of covenant with him, and an art of knowing the spiritual realm of how he dealt with things. We're not looking, now I know you're thinking now, but we're not looking at it from a church perspective. We're
Hmm.
looking at it, how would God handle it in the spirit realm?
Yes.
That's the warfare, because there was a war between members. That's what he said in the Bible. And so there's always a war going on. But the thing about it, we have to know from the spiritual way, of what is God's way, and that's the spiritual side.
Yeah.
Because
Amen.
when the thing that gets me, I'm really I want you to understand it. When he created us, he drew us out in the natural realm. He created Adam, and he said, okay, I'm drawing a man. I'm creating this man. But it did not have form until he breathed into it, which was the
Mm,
spirit of life. So we
mm,
need to understand the spiritual side of the warfare, not only understanding why the enemy is attacking us, but so because we know he is attacking us, but
yeah.
the spiritual realm is to connect back to God, to know this is not what I'm supposed to be following because it's not lining up. So the art of the spiritual warfare is to know God's way so we can attack what the enemy is doing, because that's not the spiritual way of God.
Amen. Amen. I'm sorry.
I hope you heard. I hope that makes sense to you.
Makes a lot of sense. You
It
said
makes you
covenant.
think.
You said covenant. You said covenant. Um, I listened to Dr. Tony Evans yesterday, and he talked about his late wife, and but he also talked about um, when a husband and a wife are not on the same page, and you have to get that right. The scripture says you have to get that right before you go to the Lord. The Lord will say, "Hey, go fix that. Go fix that."
Mm-hmm.
And the enemy understands that because of the simple fact that if you can't get this right, then obviously God's not going to listen until you fix that. But if the discord can be so prominent in the relationship where you're not even God is not hearing your prayers because you haven't fixed that, but
You haven't fixed that.
she ain't hearing your conversation because you haven't fixed that. So then he understands that if he can keep that communication barrier off key, then the whole house stays off key and nothing gets resolved that way. So if I can keep this wedge right here, whether it be whatever it be, you talked about going home, and the wifely duties, and then my part, the husbandly duties. But if the enemy can keep that wedge right there, then it's almost a task to go
Mm-hmm.
and apologize or to pray or even to ask to forgive me because you're still upset.
Right.
And then that right there in terms keeps everything's off. And then God is like, I can't really get it because you guys can't even figure it out.
Exactly. I'm not going to get involved because the thing about it, this is the thing that a lot of people have to realize, that when it comes to certain things, God said, I want you to work it out. You got to work this thing out because I put enough in you so you to know the difference. And that's the beauty of having a relationship. I tell people all the time, I have a relationship with God. I'm not
Mhm.
just serving him. I have a relationship. And so in my relationship, he gonna make me, he gonna step, hey, get it together, Trina.
Yeah.
You go make it right. So if I did something wrong, because of my relationship, he's gonna check me first. And then
Mhm.
I'm going to come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, hon. Oh, I'm sorry for this. Because he's going to make you understand you can't have a relationship with me and not have a correction or relationship with your spouse or a relationship with your children, and
Mhm.
love me
Hey,
who you ain't seen, and you
yeah.
see them every day and acting like you can't stand them.
Yeah. Fix that before you try to fix this.
Right, right.
So, and we're gonna wrap it up here in just a moment. But and I didn't really give much of your background, and I apologize for that. So dealing with the mindset and things like that, a little bit about yourself, that people can understand who you are a little bit, Dr. Trina.
Okay, well, I sent you some information, and it, like I said, it's an honor to be in the radio show with you, Zoom. I have two organizations that I truly love and I have a passion for. One of them is called Neuropathic Trainers, and
Mhm.
that's my foundation that I have, and I help families that deal with loved ones that go through dementia.
Right.
And then we talked about that yesterday. And so I help families understand that for early onset, and how to help people that are dealing with financial issues as they take care of their loved ones, how to get through that process. And then my other company is called Data Civility, and that's the part where we work with HBC youth schools, and we're actually working with making sure that we can get statistical studies to
Right.
show our population of what's correct in regards of inner cities or even the suburbs or the rural areas of the United States that have a population that has not been accounted for in regards of healthcare issues. As you know, with the pandemic happened, there was a lot of people that didn't have access to the internet for virtual doctor's appointment. And so I personally know a couple people that lost loved ones because they couldn't get doctor's appointments. And so because the virtual connection, because everybody was doing virtual appointments, they wasn't having people go into the office to do one-on-ones. And
Right.
so in some parts of the country, in the United States, there is no internet service. And
Mm-hmm.
so within 2022, you have seen a lot of towers go up in regards to the 5G,
Mm-hmm.
but there is still some rural areas that do not have internet connection. So if anything was to happen again, I know that I'm working with another organization. I'm trying to get them to partner with us. And so that there will be internet connection in rural areas so family members can make doctor's appointments for their loved ones. And a lot of the other thing was that some of our seniors, including my dad, that he didn't have an internet service and he didn't have a laptop. He's like, I don't know nothing about that. And
Yeah.
so for that generation, like you were talking about your grandmother, they probably didn't know how to get on a laptop and do all these doctor's appointments that they were wanting to do for people. And so I think that it's important that they have caregivers or have someone to come in and set those appointments up and have the funds that's necessary for that to be taking place. And so those are some of the things that I do on the back end. I have been in the health and wellness industry for several years. Oh, my sister was diagnosed with early onset at 40. Well, she had signs at 48, was diagnosed at 51, and she passed at 63.
Mm.
And so with that being said, I really believe that the mental health piece is really crucial. And there is that part of it is connected to this art of the spiritual warfare, because
Yeah.
some people need to know how to handle their mindset of the mental part of what's going on with their loved ones, and how to have balance.
Mm.
How to have balance, and that with this spiritual warfare, it's going to allow you to be balanced, because now I'm not triggered by everything, because I
Yes.
know that it's the enemy that's trying to bring distraction and kill, steal, and destroy. And so
Mm.
my trigger is not to give focus to what the enemy is doing, but to focus on what I need to do to make me better. And so I think that if we're focused on how to do those things and say, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to handle it, I think we'll be much better. And I think this is part of the covenant of what I believe God is calling us for with the art of spiritual warfare. And knowing that we will be able to be better to love each other as well as love ourselves and start
Mm.
taking care of certain issues within ourselves. So that's a little bit about me.
Mm.
And so as I sent you my websites and
Mhm.
different things, you can post them if you choose to.
Mhm.
Um, but that's the good thing about knowing someone that's helping families that deal with this across the United States, including international.
Beautiful. Yeah. Listen. I listen. After all that, all I can say is listen. You know, I'm gonna read a little bit about this here. It's the art of spiritual warfare boot camp. It says every believer must be tactical when it comes to things in spirit and an enemy. Let's see. And the enemy rages against you. If you're not tactical in position, in dangerous place to be. Spiritually, because you are leaving yourself and your family open to the vulnerable and the attacks of assault of the enemy. The
Mm-hmm.
Art of Spiritual Warfare Boot Camp will be a 2-day initiative, spiritual warfare that urges training in the place for the road to be effective in the art of spiritual warfare. So that's the event that's coming up that we're talking about, everybody. The art of spiritual warfare that Dr. Jackie had not had as successfully spearheaded this. And for such a time as this, there's definitely the time to have. We're speaking with Dr. Trina Brown, which is one of the panelists that'll be there. There are a few more there are a few more panelists there. Dr. Phyllis, Dr. Crystal, Dr. Janice, and Sam Huddleton, along with Minister Greg Hadnot, which is her husband, that are on this panel, and they're having this. Oh, the dates. Let me say the date. It's April 21st through the 23rd. April
Correct.
21st through the 23rd. Register there at Spiritual Boot Camp. Yeah, I think you can Google Spiritual Boot Camp
Yeah,
there.
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Go to Spiritual Boot Camp and look it up. And it is man. Listen, it's time. It's time. So I like to tell Dr. Trina Brown, thank you so much. And is there anything you like to leave with the audience? Is there anything that you like to say before we finish up here, Doc?
Yeah, I would like to say that, sometime life, we go through life, we go through certain things that leads us to a place that we feel that we have no end. We have no hope, no hope. There's no hope. And if I can leave anyone with some hope, is that what you're going through right now is not the end of everything. You have to understand that there is hope, and as you look at to where God has you at, understand that you are the canvas and he is the art. He's the painter. Allow him to brush the things off that need to be brushed. Allow yourself to go through the process of life and say, God, I thank you for creating me to be the creative person. And not only that, but just knowing that when you go through certain things, is that I'm moving forward for my kingdom assignment. My assignment is always greater than what it seemed. And so I can't let the enemy distract me, because the assignment is much needed. And I was created to do something great. So those are the things that I want to leave with your audience, is that letting them know that my assignment in the earth is to be creative, and not only be creative, but I am here to make a difference. And what my impact will be is based off of what I do. And so being a part of this art of spiritual warfare will allow me to get the tools that I need to allow him to continue to paint on the canvas, which is me, and creating me to be the creative person that I need to be.
Beautiful, beautiful. Listen, hey, we're built for this. God got you here for a reason. He wouldn't have created you for this time such as this, and you wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here for a time such as that. Listen, this didn't get God by mistake. He didn't know that this wasn't coming. We knew what was happening. So listen, thank you so much, Dr. Trina Brown. I really appreciate you being willing and available. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone who's listening. Thank you for the folks who tuned in. We'll share it again, share it out. But this has been another episode of Street Therapy with Chris Jackson. Thank you, Mr. George Walker, as well. Thank you for facilitating. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, we will end the show here. And thanks again. Y'all take care. God bless.
All right. Have a blessed one. Thank
You
you.
too. Bye bye.
All right. Okay. Are we good now?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we're done. We're going to end up on our side here.